Best laid plans, right? It's been
Over a year.
months since I promised to release a series of quick updates on latest progress because we've just been kind of blasting through projects but not really taking the time to record instructional segments or anything. I'm going to try again. We've got a lot of rain going on right now, and it's not easy to do some of the last exterior work on the bus that I want to. We have been doing a lot of interior work, and we're going to see how much I can reproduce from a kind of behind the camera perspective. This might just be a jumble of short clips and stuff mashed together, but we'll see what we can come up with. Anyway, here we go. These bars were what the wheelchair lift mounted to underneath the frame. We put a coat of Corosil rust converter on them because this is what they looked like when we took them out from underneath. Prepping metal for Corosil treatment on the inside.
Be nice.
Yankees game is on. Go Yanks. Our ceiling patch is going to be cut out of our old ceiling. So our panel has been cut out, and we picked up a Max Air fan, which is going to go in the location of our hatch. So I went ahead and marked out the cutout for the center of this panel, and I'll walk you through the way that I learned how to do my sheet metal cutting. This is a better angle, pardon my camera shadow. So step one is mask off your cut area. These were my lines that I had drawn, and the inside edge of my masking tape marks my cut line. So step one is go around the perimeter once, like so. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do another row out, offsetting the tape a little bit farther to make kind of like a bigger mask around. Okay, step two, we went around and made a larger square, so there's a little bit of an overlap around our pieces of tape, but still the bare metal represents the cutaway area. This inner edge of the tape is still where we're cutting. Now, typically doing it this way is it's done if you're trying to preserve the integrity of the finish of the material that you're not cutting. This whole thing is going to get repainted anyway, but this is just the way that I've always gotten accustomed to doing metal cutouts, so I'm going to do it my way. One more step now is we're going to do a third layer of tape lined up again on this inside edge. So there's actually like inside, outside, inside, all the way around. And you're going to have a double thick tape line, and that's going to be your guideline for your cut. Okay, my third layer of tape is now applied. You can see it's kind of like extra thick right there. This is my cutout line still. And the next step is to drill pilot holes in each corner with a handy stepper bit. Another quick tip, just for self-organization purposes, when you are working on, for example, patching up an area, and you're going to do a lot of different cuts and a lot of different sizes, but you want to economize your work and do all your cutting at the same time, just take a Sharpie and mark stuff out. So I've gone through here looking like a plastic surgeon, circling all the areas that need something, and I put a number next to every patch that I plan on cutting. And I wrote that all down in a list, so as I make my way through and around, I remember, oh yeah, that's right, well, that one, okay, that one's number 8, that one's number 12, that one's number 13. And it'll all make sense when we go to my list, where I numbered each cut and wrote down the dimensions that I measured for it, and even kind of planned out a little bit. So when I transfer that to the metal, look at that. I had a whole bunch of 3x3s and a couple 4x3s and a 7x3 and an 8x3. So you can kind of consolidate them together and say, okay, well, this is the way to economize my material. I can just kind of do these all piece by piece. And then the number is going to be on each piece after I cut it, so that I know right where it goes when I head back to the inside of the bus. I had a little bit extra of this material, and I had a corner here where I had to remove the bent steel pipe. So I made a curved piece just by cutting a whole bunch of slots into that straight channel. And then once I cut the slots, I think I did one about every inch, and kind of open them up in sort of a wedge shape. So you cut straight down and then make a second cut, kind of on an angle. And I just kind of, winged it a little bit, and then I was able to just curl it right up and bend it, and it sits in right there. I'm also going to have a piece of flat sheet metal that goes out right to this edge to fill up this gap here, and that's going to mount in its place. So I'm just kind of reframing and getting this more, just making it whole before we continue. Welcome back to another edition of Things You Run Into That You Weren't Expecting. I kind of was expecting this a little bit because there was evidence of a wet spot where water would collect on the floor of the bus when I was cleaning up earlier, and I just assumed there was a little bit of a pocket of water kind of stuck between layers of metal, but I actually needed to patch out this section of the floor, and so I'm going to turn down here and show you. I cut out this rectangle where the floor had gotten mangled up. And if you look inside, I actually sopped up an entire towel's worth of water first. This thing was full of standing water, and it's the inside of one of the subframe rails. It's an upward-facing channel, and this thing has just a bunch of liquid in it. So obviously someplace there was a seal that was failed, either like the butyl tape or whatever was used on the underside to seal up this beam. There was an opening, and there's a place where water just splashes up and catches. So not only did I have to cut away the bad section of metal to patch over the top of it, but I'm going to have to figure out some way to either fill that cavity with expanding foam or somehow reseal around the edges of it in order to make sure that doesn't happen again. Otherwise, I've been pretty lucky. There aren't too many places where we need to cut out material. This is the only other patch that I had to cut, and that one was bone dry, so I'm happy about that. But things to be mindful of, you know, leave no stone unturned. We had some rust damage in this guy, and as you can see, we had to cut away some material that was simply not metal anymore. And I'm gonna work on making a patch that kind of fits in and bolts into this space, or rivets in instead, rather, to kind of, you know, shore it up and increase some strength and rigidity to the area. We're also pretty chewed up back down here as well, so I'm gonna form a piece of sheet metal to match this profile here and wrap around and close everything up. So we need to get waterproof again, rust proof again. Yeah, this is the last of the really icky issues we need to rebuild before we can actually start fabricating the interior. We're at the driver's side door here, and this is the profile that I'm actually trying to replicate. It's this curve underneath here, because as you can see, we had a lot of rust damage on this underside. So what I'm going to build is a curved piece to rivet in place on top of this and fill out that gap. Now, from this intersection here to this one here is exactly 31 inches, and I gave myself, what did I do? You know what, I might have done this a little bit wrong. We'll figure it out. But, well, yeah, we'll see what I do. Alright, I'm gonna kind of wing this a little bit. I'm gonna drill some holes through these guys to help make my jig. I've got terrible words right now, my vocabulary is shot. But this is a cool table that's gonna let me take these very odd shaped pieces and hold them firmly in place and drill holes in them. That's all. Holes have been drilled, and they've made it all the way through. Just a little preview of what's going to happen here. I have these screws, which I'm going to be screwing through these, ultimately on a piece of plywood like that. And that's going to hold this form in place when I space it out, more or less like so. And I'm going to be wrapping a piece of sheet metal around that to help form it to shape. Next thing I'm doing is I'm going to create a little countersink hole so that I can get a little more penetration on these screws, because I want them to go almost all the way to the front here and really get some good clamping force, because this isn't perfectly tight. I had a sloppy cut on my table saw to notch this out. Anyway, we're going to see how it goes. Okay, the sheet metal bending jig is now complete. So I've got my curve profile that I'm going to be bending my metal around, and this guy here is going to be sort of a wedge clamp. Let me see if I can do this if it's a little bit loose. So the sheet metal is going to stick between these pieces right here. There's a little bit of a gap there, and once I stick the sheet metal in, I will be able to tighten these screws down, and that's going to clamp the edge in place along here. And then I'm going to be able to roll the metal around this curve, fold it over here, and create the profile of the channel that I need. Neato. I realize I skipped a couple steps here, but I cut out a flat piece of sheet metal from our old corner trim pieces that used to be part of the interior ceiling. And I've got it inserted through, wedged in place. I also gave myself a little bit of a tail here, partly to align on the edge. I measured this guy to the length of the trim piece that we have, and then I'm gonna use this guy for mounting of a secondary piece, which I'll explain shortly in another clip. Finally, with a bajillion clamps, I was able to get this thing actually wrapped, and I have a new runner that's going to go underneath. So driver door right here, metal underneath. Clamps are everything. Clamps are love. Clamps are life. Okay, pieces are coming in and fitting into place. So this guy is coming together well, this guy's coming together well, and I'm just gonna have a nice little right angle piece that's gonna butt up against those, and then all of our holes will be repaired. Test fit is going great.